Welcome to my Self-Care Sht, the podcast, where we talk about what true self-care looks and feels like. I'm your host, Kathy Love, two-time TEDx speaker, author, and self-care coach. Each week, we'll have honest conversations on how to create the peace and stability we crave in our lives. Erica Bonham is passionate about walking folks through the beautiful, messy process of turning wounds into wisdom so that we can all remember our true nature, that we are always and already enough, and we still have work to do. Her work bridges personal healing with collective transformation and invites us to remember that the world needs us here in our fullest expression. She's a nationally sought-after speaker, licensed professional counselor, certified EMDR clinician, consultant, trainer, best-selling author, and nervous system regulation coach. She's passionate about redefining leadership as a practice of presence, resilience, equity, and joy. Erica, I am so excited to have this conversation with you today. I love anyone that has a swear word in their title. And
Same.
and so I knew that we would have a great conversation. So I I would love to for you to tell us about how you got into the work you do, but also I'm really curious as to how you have turned this work into a much larger mission.
Yeah. Oh, I love those questions. Okay. So I mean, I think I got into this work as most therapists do because we have our own shit, you know?
Yes.
And so I mean, I had a fairly decent childhood, but I'm adopted. And I think I kind of came into this world with some stuff. My birth father drowned a couple days after my birth parents conceived me in a tragic drowning accident. Um, and so I think my birth mom had a lot of shame. I was the impetus for her becoming a evangelical born again Christian, which, I think is hilarious on the universe part because I'm this wild queer heathen woman and I'm the impetus for her celibacy and her, on this path that feels very different than mine, right? And I think my dad broke a lot of patterns, but still struggles to attune to me emotionally. And then my mom again broke a lot of patterns, but she was an adult survivor of childhood sexual trauma.
Mm.
And she was a drinker. I was a drinker. I'm sober from alcohol 5 years now. And
Congratulations.
thanks. And so it's just there. And I've come to really realize nobody gets out of this thing unscathed. We all have stuff. We all have not so pretty parts. And we're just now learning. I mean, it's this wisdom has been in indigenous populations for a long time, but those of us in the Western world or, kind of in more mainstream psychology are really starting to learn. And the science is really starting to back up what we know about ancestral trauma. And so we're all coming into this thing with stuff that's just older than we are. And so I think it starts as, oh, I want to feel purposeful, I do want to help others. You inevitably embark on your own healing journey. If you don't, you're probably going to cause harm as a therapist. um and then it I think as we heal, we naturally want to start to have a wider aperture, right? Trauma organized nervous systems are very myopic. They're very self-protective, very self-oriented. Even if we're people pleasing or over responsibility taking, it's still really about a subconscious need of our own to try to soothe our nervous systems. And so I think it just naturally starts to widen, and you naturally start to want to build more community as you heal. You start to want to uh, just serve others, but not from this martyry place, from this place of like, I am human, we are walking each other home, we're part of, and I mean, I think we're all feeling the collective weight right now. It feels really hard to be a human
Absolutely.
right now. And And so I think a lot of us are just wanting to connect with something bigger than ourselves so that we feel like we are a part of pulling this arc closer to the values that many of us want to see, like equity or joy or beauty or connection or community, which in Western individualized society, those are values that maybe many of us want, but in the larger collective, those are not the values that we organize around, right? We organize around urgency, perfectionism, productivity at all costs, optics, right? How do
Doing
things
it
look?
yourself.
Doing it, yes, hyper individualization, doing it yourself. And so I think many of us are feeling the lack of community and beauty and equity. And it's we're in a really big, wild time of being alive. And even though I hold the brutality and the it's just the weight and the grief and the rage, and I have deep reverence for that and how certain communities are really being impacted in other ways that maybe I personally don't feel, but I feel the weight of that. Um, and I also have a lot of hope. I feel like this people are taking care of each other. People are building communities in ways that we haven't seen. I got white people in my office talking about how to deconstruct racism and ancestral trauma, and men talking about how do I actually maintain my sense of healthy masculinity but still become emotionally available. I mean, these are topics that I would have to really kind of gently guide people to, and now people are coming in wanting to do that. So I have a lot of hope, and I think, yes, it's freaking brutal out here, and tiny beautiful things are happening all the time.
And I got this sense that you believe that our own individual healing is so important for us to live our best and healthiest and most joyful life, but that contributes to the collective healing
Right.
of.
And I think it's sort of an infinity sign, right? It kind of works both ways. Our collective stuff impacts us and shapes us and can be a source of strength, if we have a sense of community, but it can also be a source of trauma and pain. And so our collective shapes our individual healing, as well as our individual healing helps us. What I've been saying lately, what just feels aligned for me is I want to metabolize and alchemize as much as I can so that I can step into my fullest expression, so that others can step into their fullest expression, and we can do the damn thing, right? That we can pull this arc closer. We can be part of, giving birth to a new world, if you will, if that doesn't sound too woo woo, right? But of really helping heal the collective, heal the land, reconnect, repair what we need to repair. And so I think it's nonlinear and emergent.
The ancestral trauma is not something that I've talked about on this podcast yet. Could you go
Yeah.
into that a little bit more so that people have a better understanding? Like you were talking about, trauma before birth or at birth, and some people don't understand how that shows up in their adult life.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I want to first invite your listeners is, because we can get so thinky and cognitive in all of this, right? We live in a very cognitive heavy society as well. And so just inviting a felt sense of just noticing your family line first, and noticing what are the things that that the stories that about your grandparents or about your great grandparents, and what might show up both as trauma or trauma responses, like stay quiet or stay small or do things perfectly, or even pull yourself up by the bootstraps is a trauma response, right? Perfection, all those things that we mentioned collectively are actually trauma responses. If I was working with an individual that was struggling with perfectionism and urgency, those are signs of a dysregulated system. So I think that
Right.
shows up
And
in
that even that hyper
hyper,
independence, right?
exactly,
That we,
exactly.
right.
So yeah. So Resma Menakem, who is a Black social worker, he wrote My Grandmother's Hands. He's brilliant. He talks about, the white bodies that were coming over here are, if we're in a white body, the white bodied ancestors that we have, were coming over here from extremely brutalizing situations. And that trauma never got dealt with and decontextualized. We see white supremacy culture that is rooted in urgency, only one right way, right? Dogma, um, individualism, paternalism. And that trauma got projected onto bodies of color. And so, I think we see it in the larger collective, but we can even see it, as we sort of just go back into the family line, just notice the felt sense of what shows up in your body. And maybe I'll share a story. So, and I don't actually think
Please.
I know that it's not just genetic, although it is absolutely scientifically shown that trauma can be passed on epigenetically in the DNA, and trauma responses that were in your great grandparents can show up decontextualized in your own system. And you kind of don't, you have this sense that there's this decontextualized rage or this decontextualized fear, and you don't know why, but maybe you have a felt sense of it. But again, I'm adopted, and so my mom that raised me was the childhood sexual abuse survivor, and she died in 2014. And I was struggling with alcohol, and I actually sought out ketamine assisted psychotherapy. And in one of those medicine sessions, it felt as though the spirit of my mom was actually engaging in EMDR therapy, which is a very common PTSD therapy protocol. Was engaging in EMDR therapy through my body to actually address and heal from the sexual abuse that she didn't really get to address and heal from in her physical form. And who knows, right? I don't know. But I will tell you that I've been sober since that session, essentially, that I
Wow.
feel her energy clearer and cleaner. She spiritually feels happier and freer. And who knows? I don't know. Maybe I'm making it all up. Maybe it's just the story that my brain came up with, but I don't really care because I feel better, and it feels energetically extremely different in my body. And the words that I'm saying to you feel insufficient to capture what really happened, right? It's hard to describe, just like the wounding is hard to describe, right? Babies pick up their world through their senses. And so, whether it's preverbal trauma, womb trauma, ancestral trauma, oftentimes that wounding is without words, and the healing is kind of beyond words as well.
And that's why I keep hearing you say feel, feel, feel.
Yeah.
That it's a
Yeah.
feeling. And that we spend so much time in our heads, in our thoughts, in our minds. And whether it's true or not, we have a choice of what we're going to spend our time believing and thinking. And so I always say too that although it's not something that I can necessarily prove, I'm going to choose that over anything else that I could, that I have the option to believe.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And I think there's real power in that, in remembering where we exist at choice. And I would add sort of a nuance both and to that. Yes, it's hugely important to notice our thoughts and notice what we believe about ourselves. And one of my other little catchphrases is like, trauma doesn't give a shit what we know. So we can know and we can believe, that we're not bad people, or that we are, that the abuse wasn't our fault, for example, right? We can know things, but there might be deeper emotional parts of us, places in the body that even though we know better, it holds the more negative patterns, or the patterns that were adaptive to survive the trauma. And so I always like to know, yes, changing the belief system is important, but it's also really important. That's like a top down process. And trauma really is stored in the lower parts of the brain. And so it's going to require a bottom up process. And the necessary enzymes, right, for digesting trauma, it moves beyond the cognitive. It moves beyond what we just believe about ourselves, because that's just not how it's stored. And so the necessary enzymes are, yes, heart and feeling, but feeling with a sense of attunement, both with maybe another human being in the room, but also towards ourselves. And then the body. So the heart and the body, having some sense of body awareness, the ability to, move it through, like sometimes just moving our bodies in intuitive ways, shaking it off, wiping it off, rolling out the joints, right? Completing the stress response, letting your body push someone off of you if you weren't able to do that, letting your body open your mouth and scream if you felt like you couldn't say anything. The body and the heart is so, so important. And so that would be my nuance to, yes, choose your thoughts wisely, absolutely, but we can't think our way out of trauma.
And that's the somatic practice, the
Yeah.
somatic exercises that you teach and guide to actually heal the trauma in the body, correct?
Yeah. And I would say, yes, I'll put a free, I think I sent you my little freebie, which is 11 somatic. It's like a regulation toolkit. It's 11 somatic exercises, but find your own medicine. It's anything. It's moving intuitively. It's shaking your body.
Yes.
It's dancing in your kitchen. It's whatever you find that you can feel just a little sense of like, a little more spaciousness in your gut, maybe a little release in your gut, a little less frenetic energy. It's just a little more capacity. And so for some, those vagus nerve stimulators work, and for some they don't. And for some, yoga is the thing, and for some, walking is the thing. For some, stillness is a thing, but for some, it needs to be more movement. And so find what works for your body.
Yes.
But I will say that if you're just thinking and reading and listening to podcasts without any kind of deeper, intentional, somatic and heart-centered work, you're probably going to be swimming around in the surface for a while. And that's why a lot of people can go to therapy for 5, 10 years, a lifetime. And you're like, my mother-in-law has been going to therapy for 10 years and she's still the same. And it's probably because they're swimming around on the surface of what happened that week and not really getting to the deeper roots.
I love that. And I love that you reinforce the idea that it's not the same for everyone. People will try meditating for an example because you hear about it all the time. They don't like it, and then they think that there is nothing other than that
Right.
for them, or they can't do it. And it can be the most obscure. As long as it works for you, it works.
Totally. Totally. You can do a walking meditation or screw meditation if you just need to put Prince on or heavy metal
Right.
on or whatever works for you, right? Like,
Yes.
find the medicine that works for you. And I will say though that in and of itself is also probably not sufficient. And that is like what I talk about in my book is like the resources, the things that are going to help you widen your window of tolerance, we call it, your ability to kind of ride the waves of stress, ride the waves, kind of work along with the edges of flight, fight, and freeze. The things that are going to widen your window of tolerance are only there so that you can do the deeper work without re-traumatizing yourself. But I would say that there has to be some intentional work, some intentional process of going toward the not so pretty parts, the not so pretty parts of ourselves, the not so pretty things that have happened to us, the not so pretty things in our family history, the not so pretty things in our collective. And to be able to hold the brutality and the beauty in the same breath, and to alchemize, to digest, to compost that which has been managed and held and constricted and smushed and exiled and, thrown in the attic, never to be heard from again. To actually go toward and through that is to alchemize it. And then we free up all that energy, right? When we first connected, I think, we were talking about the rage that people are feeling, especially like people of color, maybe, or women in general, or queer people, right? Like there's a lot of anger. And again, understandably so. I would ground that in sacred rage. Rage tells us that our boundaries have been crossed. Anger is a justice seeker. And so when we can actually alchemize that rage, when we can digest it, we move beyond. Rage tends to get us stuck in what we're fighting against, right? It tends to get in the fight response, maybe the flight response, but it gets us stuck in that protection, fighting against, being right, coming at someone. And if we can actually alchemize it, we can remember that there is love at the center of that rage. And we move that energy, we free up that energy into what we are fighting for. Aren't we really wanting to fight for not just the survivors of abuse, but also a world where the perpetrators get the healing that they need and they no longer feel the urge to do that, right? That we
That is a
alchemize this.
radical, that is
I
a
mean, it
radical
is.
concept.
It is huge. But isn't that the vision that we need? And I understand if you're not there, that is okay. I'm not there on most days. Like
Yeah.
we're going to be in the dance of this. And
Yes.
we're going to die unhealed.
Right.
I've been joking with my clients. Like, I bet when I'm dying, my inner critic will be like, "You're doing this wrong. you're
Right.
not surrendering enough."
Right.
And
So,
that's why I called my book Always Enough, Never Done, because we have to remember that we are always and already enough, lovable, worthy, and inextricably connected to every other living thing on this planet, just as we are. There is a part of us that the trauma doesn't touch. There is a part of us that is not just lovable, but just is love,
is
that
love.
is awareness, right? And alongside that, and we all have shadow. We all have work to do. We all have not so pretty parts of ourselves. And the second we think we are done is the second we cause harm, really.
So what you've said that a couple times, the parts that aren't pretty, the things that have happened to us, to our family that aren't pretty, um, it could scare people away, right? Who are listening, who haven't done this before. But I love that you said that's what brings us the peace and the joy once we get through it. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
do you have a place where you have people start that is putting a toe in? Obviously, on the first day of starting to do the work, we're not going to bring in all of the trauma, right? So
No.
how do you explain to someone that it is a process and that they're safe in doing this, even though it's going to suck and hurt?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one, I really don't ever say the words "you're safe" because that's not for me to say whether or not people feel safe. It kind of gives me the ick when people are like, "This is a safe space," right? Because you're like, you don't get to determine whether or not I feel safe with you, right? You can say, "My intention is to create enough emotional safety. And maybe you can notice that in this moment, there's no physical harm coming to you, right? So we'll start there. We'll start like maybe with just a noticing of what they see, what they hear, what they smell, taste, touch, right? What I usually assess what is going what are they doing well, because the
Right.
trauma organized nervous system often focuses on the negative, which is a natural human brain thing, right? But trauma just exacerbates that. So are they moving their body? Are they feeding their children? Are they taking a shower every day? Are they, or a reasonable
Right.
amount of time? Are they, you know, are they functioning to some degree? And if not, then like it's okay. But though, to try to couch an understanding that everything humans do, all the dangerous and annoying and trust rupturing and life, you know, blowing up actions that we do, they have an adaptive quality to them. So we start with a little bit of that, start with an understanding that whatever they're coming in with likely was an adaptation to something, whether that's an addiction or even depression or anxiety. Those parts of them have an adaptive quality. And then I certainly want people to walk out of the first, or at the very least second session, with some kind of either somatic practice or attachment resource, whether that's, we just roll out the body or push against the wall, or there's the polyvagal reset, finding something that helps them go from upset to calm-ish, calmer. Maybe they're not fully zenned out or whatever, but they can feel just a little turning down the volume.
Yeah, I love that.
Right. Yeah, we are definitely not jumping right into trauma work. That is not a good idea.
Right.
But it's like we want to hold that both end of getting people there as effectively as we can without rushing or forcing or pushing. Because I tend to work with people that are like me, let's do it. Let's get to it. Let's get this done. I used to preach slow is fast, and I'm like, yeah, that's cute for all y'all, but I'm gonna crush this.
Yeah, you've got the cheetah print on. Cheetahs are not a
Yeah,
slow
yeah.
animal.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right. Like, I mean, that's not my constitution. My constitution is fast. Let's go. Let's get it done. And I just have to learn this lesson many, many times of slow is fast, especially when it comes to trauma work, because trauma really is things that are too much, too fast, too quick, too soon, too overwhelming, too dangerous. And so when we rush and push through it, we actually recapitulate the energy that's stuck and stored in our system. So, yeah, we take it slow, and we're not swimming around too longer than we need to, right? We do want to get you there, because trauma work actually is the thing that's going to free you up.
Right.
And it sucks, and it's hard, and I know it is painful. It can bring up nausea. Like we
Right.
often say, like, if you feel like you want to puke, you're probably in the right
You're
place.
close. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right.
And so again, it's really hard, and it takes a lot of grace, and it's nonlinear, and you think you're there, and then you get a text from your mom, and you're like, I feel like I'm 4 years old again. Ah! And then you're like, okay, the rabbit hole's a little less deep, and
Yeah.
I come out of it a little more quickly, and but there is such liberation and freedom. And the best way that I can describe it for myself is like, I just don't hate myself anymore. It's
Mm.
like I cognitively knew that I wasn't a bad person. But I think a lot of adoptees, we view things through the lens of rejection, right? We view things through the lens of there must be something wrong with me. It's just stored in our nervous system in this way. It's old, 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 old. Um, And it's a little less, it's like, sometimes when that part, that not enough part, or that I'm bad part comes up, I'll get hooked into it, of course, but it's like, oh, hey babe, I got you. you know you're mine now. I know you had to believe that. I know you had to do that, and it's okay. I got space for you. You belong at the table. I'm not going to let, well, alcohol part, you're not going to destroy, like, you're not coming in here. Sometimes we got to set boundaries with our parts. I love you. You got me through. You did a good job. And we're not doing that today.
Right.
Um,
That's the adult part of us coming through. And that's when
yeah,
we talk about reparenting ourselves. What you were just describing is, excuse me,
totally.
giving some healthy words to the parental
Right.
figure in our mind and in those stories.
That's
And
right. Yeah.
in the book that you wrote, Always Enough, Never Done, I love that title.
Thank you.
Can you tell us a little bit about what people can expect in that book? You
Yeah.
will, I'm sure, do a better job than I will at that.
Yeah.
And I will include the link. So I'll have the link. I'll have
Yeah.
all links in the somatic exercises that you shared, and also to your book. So
Yeah,
just a
awesome.
little bit
Yeah, and
about it.
there is an accompanying digital workbook that's available on my website. It's digital, so it's not available on Amazon. But if they go to my website, there's an accompanying workbook.
Okay,
But so I think the book starts with just a grounded understanding of how trauma, unhealed wounds, grief is stored in the system. And then we move into kind of the resourcing phase. It kind of walks people through the arc of trauma work, but it's
that's great.
non-linear, and it's not a linear process. So I think it's very unique in that it's like full of somatic ideas. It has QR codes to me teaching videos. I actually am including that in the freebie, that those links to a lot of the exercises that are in the book. But there's even more in the book. And then we talk about, like, what does it actually look like and mean to go down and in and toward and through to the work. And I sort of talk about it in terms of a descending path. Like, sometimes we got to compost, right? Sometimes we got to go do the dirty stuff, look at the not so pretty stuff, look at the shadow. And when we actually digest and compost, we create this fertile soil so that we can actually do a more embodied ascending path work, right? Yes, positive thinking, but it's a more of an embodied, aligning your nervous system, grounding your nervous system in a more empowered belief, or in a more loving state towards yourself and towards other people, a more open, higher capacity. And so, who do you want to be? Who are you? What's your identity without all this trauma? Because most of us realize, oh, my whole personality is actually a trauma response. So, we're like, oh, there could be a real identity crisis. Like, who am I if I'm not the mom that's saying yes to every bake sale? Um, where is my worth if I'm not hustling for it? So,
And I love how you laugh when you're saying these things, right? Because that's the beauty in it and the fun in it is when you start to do the healing and you can see it for what it is,
yeah,
we can laugh at it.
there is a levity. And oh God, it's so, and I mean, of course, we have to be careful, right? We don't want to minimize the pain that people are going through, and bypass it. But yes, when we have more capacity, we can hold the heavy with reverence, and we can have this lightness and effervescence of being, because we are also here to experience love and beauty and chocolate cake and nature, and feeling a part of something bigger than ourselves. And those there is levity and laughter, and we creativity starts to come back online, and starts to help us alchemize even more, right? So
Be that badass.
yeah, yeah. And it's there's sweetness there, right? We start to really see that gosh, at the center of our most shadowy shit is the sweetest nectar. It's the sweetest parts of us. It's the sweet little human that came into this world like wide-eyed and like, yeah, let's do this, right?
Which makes it
Um,
all worth it.
yeah. Yeah, and there really is, my friends, there is liberation and space and levity and beauty on the other side of this really dark stuff. And
Mm.
it's nonlinear. Another metaphor I talk about is it's like a kaleidoscope, right? Like you're here in this iteration right now, and then you start to turn the colors, you start to compost the patterns, and the patterns shift, and then whew, you're in this new iteration of yourself. And they're both whole, and you're on sacred ground just as you are. You can't skip this step. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And go down and in and toward and through, and then you're in this new version of yourself, and it's all whole and perfect and beautiful and good. And we're here individually that way, relationally that way, and collectively that way. So yeah, so we talk about the ascending and the descending paths, and then what do you want to walk away with, right? What is your next chapter look like? So it's called volume 1 because this book is really about the individual work, your own individual process. And then volume 2, which hopefully will be out this next year, is really going to be talking more about relationships, boundary setting without being an asshole, how to not weaponize boundaries, effective communication strategies, nervous system regulation within relationships, and then, of course, the larger collective stuff, spiritual trauma, racism, patriarchy. I'm going
Yeah.
big, y'all. I'm
Yeah.
going for all of it. Yeah. So
I love it. Well, so it sounds like the book, the first volume, volume one, is a great place to start.
yeah. And that was really
Um,
my intention, is that, it kind of felt like whatever your spiritual practice is, mine is a very dirty, like scavengered, non-religious one. But it felt like the universe was like, you have to write this, wants to come out. And the intention really was to democratize some of this information. Therapy is expensive, right? But you can start on your own, right? I don't think you can do it all on your own. In fact,
yeah,
that's one of the both ands that I invite, is only you can do it, and you can't do it alone.
right.
So I do think for the deeper trauma work, I would highly recommend finding a nervous system, a therapist, ideally, that knows what they're doing, that you feel that creates some safety for you, that holds you to the edge a little bit, but with a gentle touch. Um, because part of the missing experience of trauma is being alone in it, or feeling like we had to do it alone. And that's why I'm not worried about AI taking over my job, because it
Right.
might say all the right things, but it is not going to ever be able to do this, right? You and me feeling a connection, feeling my system connected to your system.
And
And
I
that
would say
really
the
is,
same thing that we talked about as far as what works for you. It's the same, it being unique, is that it's the same for finding the right person for you. So your friend's therapist may not be the person for you. And that doesn't mean that therapy doesn't work for you,
that's
right?
right.
It's
Yes, you have my
continuing to
permission to
find.
fire as many people as you need to. Now, I mean, some people, it's like the second a therapist touches on anything, they're like, I'm out. So you got to look at your
Right.
own role in it.
Yeah.
But find the person that is the right fit for you. But I do think you can do some preparation work on your own. I
Yeah.
think you can start to identify the parts of yourself, start to have some, at least some understanding about how those different patterns and parts were adaptive for you. Start to find some somatic practices that work for you. You can, and that's gonna save you some money if you can get some foundation under there before you go to a therapist that is maybe trained in my kind of magic mix is EMDR, internal family systems or somebody that does parts work. I think a person that is grounded in that work that also maybe offers ketamine assisted psychotherapy or some psychedelic therapy, that's not necessary, but it can help soften those neurological connections that are really, really fused together. That, and then, somebody that really takes a somatic and an attachment approach to this work.
So
So
those are great, great things to consider, to look for.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And a lot of folks are trained in that, and you can find that combination. Maybe you don't even have to have all of it, but that's where I find the
yeah.
magic
But I
with
really do
things.
appreciate you offering some of the freebies, because there are so many people who are going through traumatic transitions, and
Yeah,
obviously finances can get in the way sometimes of people seeking help,
yeah,
and I know that that was the case for me, and really I was really um I became very resourceful in pulling from different places so that I could piece together some help for myself until I
yeah,
was able to do what I needed to do. So that
yeah,
is really, really important to me, to be able to do that. And that's
totally.
what this podcast does too,
I
right?
love that. Yeah,
It's a
I love
way
that.
for people to get information and to hear ideas and get, some nuggets of help and ways to help themselves.
Yeah. And
So
my
thank you.
invitation for that too. That's so beautiful. I love that. I love you and the podcast so much. Like it's so beautiful. Like look at how much magic is happening, in the world. People are just doing such beautiful things. But if your listeners and just you can you just like engage with whatever landed for you with your heart? Can you drop the awareness in your body? Can you notice all the people listening to this right now, right? Like sending them love and energy and just feeling like an energetic community, kind of pull away from the cognitive a little bit, right? Take a deep breath and just engage with it in your heart and in your body. And oftentimes there's a real difference when we even just have the intention of dropping in.
Felt that. I really felt that, and I love
Yeah.
that. Thank you for bringing us back to our
Yeah.
bodies. Hmm.
Yeah. I have to remind myself lots and
And it
lots and
doesn't
lots.
take long, right? It was just you saying those words, and I was able to
Yeah.
drop right in. So
And
I
even the
cannot.
compassion, sorry, I just
Yeah,
want
go
to,
ahead.
even the compassion, right, around the thinking, right? That's an adaptive process. Like that's an adaptive thing. Like you probably were young and you went into your head and you're like, I'm going to be really smart and I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to track everybody in my life and I'm going to shapeshift and turn into what they want me to be. Or, I mean, just
Absolutely.
collectively, we get so reinforced for cognitive and thinking and figuring it out and problem solving and goal oriented and getting there. And that left brain process is so valued in our society. And so, can you just have compassion for the overthinking parts of you too? Because they were adaptive. And it's like, okay, baby girl, I love you. And you got me through. And I need you to sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up for a second because the heart and the body need a little voice here, need a little
Yeah.
time at the mic.
Yes. Well, I know that you and I could talk forever,
Yeah.
but I also know that you need to get somewhere. And so I just wanted to say thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so glad that we were able to start this. I'd love to continue the conversation again another time.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I will be putting all the links in the show notes so that people can reach you, find you, learn from you, find the book and all of that. So
Yeah. Awesome.
have a great, great night, and I will talk to you soon.
Yeah. All that gratitude and love right back to you. Thank you for doing the work that you're doing in the world. I feel your heart centered around it. It's really
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Thanks.
Great job making time for yourself today. Be sure to subscribe to my Self-Care Sht, the podcast, wherever you listen in. Your 5-star review will help get this show to whoever needs to hear it. Go grab your free daily self-care checklist on my selfcaresht.com. Please take the last minute of this podcast for yourself to listen to the ocean waves and breathe.